to releasing of such information and making it public. And what you realize is such protection, or most of that protection, is not necessarily in public interest or in the interest of either the families, but it is in private and entrepreneurial interest. For example, airlines fearing that if those reasons are disclosed, maybe they will lose customers, or the manufacturers would lose orders if it is indeed made public that it's either out of fault of a manufacturer, or probably an operator was wrong in adhering to certain measures. Those are mainly the reasons why you find that those reports never come out. But what I was saying, and which is true, you see even in an ordinary road accident, until the reason why you find families of victims wanting to go to get the details is that is one way of letting go. You know, you get to understand what happened, and then your mind and your soul feels free, and you let go of your loved ones. And I think that is why it is very, very important for those details to be made public. And it's also important that we interrogate if there are errors or faults, why, and what should be done in future.
Right.
So that can be avoided.
I think I'm not sure about the one for Abidjan, what really happened, but my mind is clear on the Douala one, that the report was actually put out, and the accident was
put out
of a pilot error. And one of the recommendations, which I want to believe KQ has adopted, is to make its training more rigorous. Basically, what the report was pointing to was that the person who was flying at the time ought not to have been flying that plane, that he didn't have the competence that was required. But somehow, in that traditional African way, where when a friend appears before you as a trainer, they just say, you grant them the permission. And it was a very serious indictment of the training systems of the airline. Well, for this other one, we shall be waiting, but all indications, and if you listen to the aviation industry experts, many are pointing towards Boeing to give us the answers, because 2 jetliners in a space of 5 months, and these are supposed to be brand new, just off the shelf, if you may put it that way, leaves the company with a lot of questions to answer for the whole world in general.
Right. Let's say from Otene Molo, on that note, because also from, and I know right now this should be under investigation, but also previously we've had other media houses like Al Jazeera doing a very intense investigative stories on the Boeing aircrafts. And one of the constitutive factors of some of these crashes were the lithium batteries. And we saw this also really was coming down in flames, especially from the tail end as well. We cannot say that it was, but until an investigation is done. But let's also hear from Otene Mola as far as these reports are concerned, and to weigh in on this particular crash briefly.
Yeah, thank you, Debarl. I think the depth of the sadness is captured by the editorial, what should be an editorial cartoon in The Nation today on page 14. I must say I'm not usually enthused lately by the cartoonist, but I think this captures the mood. I mean, really, it's a very sad day that we lost 157 lives. And among those who perished is the wife of my friend Frank Otieno, Juliet. Among those who perished is the sister of my friend Solo. She's called Stella, and she died with her young son. My heart also goes out to the family of 5 that perished. Of course, the football fraternity has also lost Hussein Swale. It's a very sad day. It cannot be put better than that. There are only 2 more things to be said. One is that while I think there are reports that at least 22 airlines have grounded their Boeing 737 MAX airlines, there's some studious silence in terms of the regional airlines, including Kenya Airways. I would want to know myself whether they have any such flight and what they're doing about it, and other, airlines in the region other than Ethiopian Airlines. But more importantly, I really hope that these investigations would be done objectively, swiftly, and we get the reports. Part of what always worries me about this investigation is that the way the airline industry works and the monopoly of the construction of aircraft always leads us to lean back to the very people who we might sometimes be suspecting to lead the investigation. Like in this case, I was seeing that there are already investigators in Addis, but more or less the people from Boeing are playing a very key role. And there's a natural tendency to downplay manufacturing defects where you are concerned, and especially given the cost of this kind of aircraft. One aircraft alone, I think this kind of aircraft costs like 10 billion and over, 12 billion. And they were saying that it is the fastest selling aircraft in the world now. I think they were saying they already have, is it over 400?
Yes.
You know, so it is important that the investigations are thorough but independent, so that we do not end up with a situation where you blame the pilot or somebody else other than the real cause. And that is my hope on this one.
Right. Lastly, let's hear from Dr. Selesimiu.
No. Halwale.
Oh, Halwale.
Or you assume
Boni Halwale. Good morning.
it's punishment for being late.
I think my colleagues have summed it all up.
Yes.
And therefore mine will just be limited to telling the families and friends that they are going to remain for a long, long time in our thoughts and, of course, prayers for what has befallen them. One remembers that 20 or so years ago, also an aircraft coming from Addis to Nairobi crashed somewhere in Comoros, I believe. And again, Kenyans were lost on that aircraft. So it's a pity that it is recurring. And for those who remember, especially the people in the media, you'll remember that in that aircraft, on the same route, there was Mohammed Mo, the famous photojournalist. I therefore want to say, Poleni Sana. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Right. We want to buckle down to a discussion this morning after our panelists have shared their deepest sympathies and condolences as well. And opposition leader Raila Odinga and Deputy President William Ruto have dominated the political landscape in the recent weeks by dint of virulent exchanges that have caused unease all around. The onslaught on each other took a worrying dimension this past week as they launched scathing attacks against each other over investigations into the award and payment of cash for controversial dam construction deals in the Rift Valley. Now, generally, differences of opinion are healthy. For the two leaders, however, everything seems personal. They use choice words to humiliate one another, sometimes denting their credentials as national leaders. Now, our concern is that their bitter rivalry is poisoning the political landscape. They're creating tensions as their supporters get agitated and seek vengeance. This is not healthy for the country. Leaders have the responsibility of handling themselves with decency and decorum. Since their fallout in the Orange Democratic Movement a while ago, the two have never hidden their disdain for each other. And that really should not bother anyone. But they are not ordinary people. They command huge political support and networks. They have fanatical supporters who follow them at every turn. When President Uhuru Kenyatta and Mr. Odinga sued for peace in March last year, they dramatically changed the political environment. Violent protest by the opposition and clashes with the police ended. Tranquility prevailed, and the country heaved a sigh of relief. Businesses started to recover, ethnic rivalry eased, and development partners that had spanned Kenya came back. President Kenyatta and Mr. Odinga have just set up the Building Bridges initiative, which has been going around the country seeking public views on what ought to be done to end cyclic clashes that come with every election. It is paradoxical, therefore, at a time when the country is looking to build bridges and cement relations, two leading political players cannot restrain themselves and accommodate each other. It is disturbing that they must consistently and persistently fight each other, not on the basis of facts and issues, but personalities. Dr. Ruto has declared his interest in contesting the presidency in 2022. Mr. Odinga on his part, has kept the public guessing on his intentions. But the two seem to be angling for a major fight in the next election and seeking to demolish each other before the appointed date. Even if the two were to compete in 2022, it should not necessarily create incessant rivalry. Take a listen to what happened actually in the past 2 weeks as far as the political tone and tenor of the country is concerned.
Wale wengine wakuje washirikiane na sisi, lakini wasikuje na fujo, na wasikuje na fitina, na wasikuje na kisirani ambayo inakuja kuleta matatizo katika chama ya Jubilee ama kuharibu mipango ya serikali ya Jubilee.
Tumeona mtindo ya huyu mgeni amekuja juzi akianza to criminalize the Harambee movement. Tukijenga makanisa anasema mtu yote naenda kanisani ni mwizi. Sasa hata tumeanza kuogopa kwenda kanisani. Tukijenga shule anasema mkitoa pesa kwa shule nyinyi ni wezi.
Hatujasahau the original handshake between our very able and the president that we love, Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto. Hata wewe mama ukiolewa na mzee wangu, huwezi kukalia ile kiti mimi huka. Kwa hivyo kama kuna nafasi umepewa, kampoa kam kidogo ukijua kuna mwenyewe.
Well, we'll play you a lengthy one. That is just a snippet of what they said last week, of course, on Sunday. And we just want to hear from our panelists right now. This Ruto-Raila slugfest that is continuing, what does it portend for the country right now? And maybe I should just begin with Aaron Cheriot, because you are quoted saying that there is no harmony in Jubilee, adding that the president has refused to meet Kalenjin leaders since being re-elected in 2017. This was your sentiments during the burial of, Condolences' son. Is that true?
Yeah, it's true. What are you asking? What is true? Whether what the newspaper is reporting
there is no harmony in Jubilee.
Of course, it is only a fool who can say there is a harmony in Jubilee anymore. The truth of the matter is that as a party, we are facing a lot of challenges, a lot of internal discordance of some sort, where party members are reading from different scripts. They are no longer speaking the same language. But more principally, the thing that worries me the most is that the momentum that the Jubilee Party enjoyed the last 5 years, and as such they were able to deliver so much of their pre-election, pre-2013 election promises to the Republic, post-2017 Jubilee Party has very little to show in terms of deliverables to the members of the party and the whole country as a general. Most of our talk nowadays is dominated by an amorphous thing called the handshake and some initiative called the building bridges, which their importance or non-importance cannot be gainsaid in one way or the other. But the ultimate truth is that when we went to election as a political party, because we must remember that political parties don't exist just for the sake of it. There are instruments through which governance structures are established in a particular country, and you're able to influence and change the lives of the people that vote you into power. I'm afraid, and I say this with a very, with all clarity of mind, that as a party we haven't lived up to our billing. There have been too many distractions, and therefore on that day what I was saying is that time has come for the party leaders, the party leader to first to hold all other initiatives that he's trying to focus on and try and sort the challenges that he's facing from within. You cannot say that you are establishing a more united and cohesive republic while the primary place where you establish your first point of call as a leader is under fire. The truth of the matter, like I observed also, is that it is very good of the president that he has met leaders from all parts of his country, from the different communities, but hasn't been able to find time for us. Yet we have even gone ahead. Ordinarily, we shouldn't be writing letters to the president, because that is not how we lived with him the last 5 years. Every time we had issues, we always found him to be accessible. But the truth of the matter, what I can reveal is that we have had to go to the lengths of all the leaders from, I can say this because I signed that letter, from the South Rift region, writing to him over 2 or 3 issues that we felt not clear to us. One, there's an issue of a particular dam where all government processes have been approved, but the truth, there is a disconnect somewhere. We do not know why for the last 1 year the funds are available, the site is available. On this one, there are no issues of compensation. Work is yet to begin. We are also having challenges, particularly to do with our the tea sector, and also there's a challenge of Mau Forest. And therefore, this and many other issues, we have sought to see our party leader, but we haven't been successful. And therefore, in the absence of any other avenue to try and reach out to him, then we had to use that particular platform and say, please find time to see us so that we can share the challenges that we have with you.
Right. Let's say from Dr. Eseli, what do you think about this particular, spats of words that we do have between Raila and Ruto so far, especially concerning corruption, pointing accusatory fingers maybe to the dam project?
I think this continued war of words threatens to muddy the waters of the peace that was created by the handshake, and also bring on the extreme ethnic sentiments that we are witnessing now. Although some of the extreme sentiments are unjustified, in the sense that if one says that the corruption war targets one community, I think what it reveals is that some departments are full of one community. That's why they are the ones who are ending up being accused of the corruption. However, if there are any challenges in the communication system of Jubilee, they should not vest it on the rest of the country. They should find the internal ways of sorting it out. If there's a communication breakdown within Jubilee as a party, and I think Jubilee should rise to the occasion and realize that they are the ruling party. And once they are the ruling party, the buck stops at their door. So they need to actually rise to the occasion, and if they didn't have proper internal party communication systems, they should then set them up so they can sit down and talk. Otherwise, what we are seeing for the rest of the Kenyans is that there is a group that's pro the fight against corruption, and there's a group that's against the fight against corruption, instead labeling it an ethnic sort of pursuit, which it isn't, because if we talk about corruption, it's affecting every Kenyan, in the sense that if loans are being taken to do certain work, and the work is not being done, and the loans have to be paid by the rest of the Kenyans, despite those projects being in certain areas of the country and not all over the country, yet all the Kenyans will pay those loans. Sorry. So I don't think anybody is justified to ethnicize the war against corruption. As for the fallout in Jubilee, that is their own making.
It's their own making.
Yeah.
Let's hear from Otena Mola. Good morning. Again, on this particular issue of Jubilee, is Jubilee coming apart as far as we can see what is going on with the sparks between, the factions, between what we have from one community and the other? I don't need to mention these communities.
Sometimes I hope that there are people who consistently listen to us on this show, because when you do, then you find some of our responses very interesting. Today, my friend and brother, Senator Cheruiyot, says only a fool would deny that there's disharmony in Jubilee. Consistently, until 3 weeks ago, Senator Cheruiyot consistently denied that there was any disharmony. And I will be interested to hear what Senator Matangi says, because they were in that together. I don't know whether he also believes only a fool would deny. But on the issue of what you're calling the bare knuckles, I think we should put things in perspective. Raila has been attacking corruption. DP Ruto and his attack dogs have been attacking Raila for attacking corruption. That is what it is. If you look at the narrative of the exchange of words, what started is that the DCI claimed that 21 billion was lost in the 2 dams. The DP, out of nowhere, came and said that is a flat lie. All that was lost is about 7 billion. Raila then came and said even 7 billion is a lot of money. It's not pocket change. But in any event, as who are you telling us it was only 7 billion? And then from there, it went on a ping pong. I think the DP shot back and said, you know, we know you are type, you called Raila Mganga. And then Raila now shot back and says that, you know, when he did not use the word thieves, but he gave an exemplification of what happens. You know,
we'll play the bite later.
Now,
yes.
What has happened really is that this is not a question of the two attacking each other. And it's not a question of what Raila said on corruption. I think the underlying problem is that the deputy president and his people believe that because of the problems that Senator Cheruiyot now has described, they believe wrongly that the cause of all those problems is Raila Amolo Odinga. And for that reason, they attack the handshake, which they supported then. They attack Raila because they are unable to attack the president directly. That is the bottom line. So the next closest punching bag is Raila on account of the handshake. So even when they attack the handshake, you would think that Raila shook hands with himself. I think what must happen is very simple. If you can't handle the heat, then leave the kitchen. You cannot be a deputy president and then the president gives an order or a directive and you come and contradict it, because then you can't deputize. By definition in our constitution, any deputy, whether you're a deputy governor or a deputy president, your primary role is to deputize your boss. So when the boss says that the war on corruption is on course, that no one will be spared, you can't come back and say, no, this war is being fought in a lopsided manner. If then they do a speech, which you are to read, what will you say? Will you read it, or will you say, those are the words of the president, but I don't agree with them? It is very simple. If you really believe that the Jubilee train is so much off course, what you intended, then leave and restart the fight in whatever other way you think.
Thank you. Let's hear from Kimani Matangi. You've always said that the Jubilee is intact. Now we hear from Aaron Cheruiyot a different story, that it is not all well within the Jubilee party. Yeah?
Well, why don't you let me start by telling Otiende Amolo that there's no one who is leaving Jubilee.
There's no what?
There's no one who is leaving
There's
Jubilee.
no one who's leaving Jubilee.
Absolutely not. I mean, that is not what we intended in the first place when we formed the party. We intended the party to stay together. And for avoidance of doubt, I want Otiende Amolo to know that the fabric with which we wove Jubilee is not only intact right now by virtue of the fact that we still hold together, but even legally. And that is why you saw we dissolved the party, such that this thing that that has played out before, for example, in NASA, whereby if you become agitated a little bit over some differences, then the next thing is you run for the door. That's what we were trying to deal with first, by ensuring that when you're in Jubilee, we have wound up those parties, and so you are there to stay. And then the second thing I want to say without mincing words is that no one is afraid of the heat inside Jubilee, if indeed it rises to whatever temperatures, because that is the way that parties grow. That is how you also mature. And there are certain aspects of this discussion that we must make clear. You know, one, I have not had at any one time, any person within Jubilee, be it the president or the deputy president, saying that they entertain corruption. The president has been very clear that he is out there to fight corruption. And when the deputy president has spoken in every forum, other than if he has spoken without me hearing, he has said it as clearly as the president, that the war on corruption is unstoppable. And he is willing and ready and in support of it. And then what you would want to deal with, if you ask me, Debarl, is once you single out the person of Raila Amolo Odinga and the deputy president, you would want to be asking yourself, have these people been political rivals before? And you see, the discussion here has been as simple as this. We have had the handshake. Now that we've had the handshake, the question has always been, is there a hidden sword behind that handshake? And that is a question that has been bringing out issues. And because Raila is the one who came in to shake hands with the president, that question will only be answered in time. In time this way, that as up to now, they have professed, the two of them, the president and Raila Amolo Odinga, that the reason why we came together is to bring this country together, to build bridges, to quell down animosity between communities, and ensure that political ambitions of anyone does not come before national interest. Those are the issues. But, and as I've said before, if at any one time in the course of this journey there is a departure from that truth, from that statement, from that fact, then it becomes an issue.
Thank you.
And so, in defense of a position, for example, from the Deputy President, where he is saying, we as Jubilee are intact and this is the way we want to go.
Thank you.
If then the handshake would introduce another gimmick, then definitely no one will be comfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's see from Bodi Khalwale before we play the clip and take a short break just to set the tone briefly.
You know, when I saw the excitement around the handshake, I remember innocently, I commented that, does the president and his deputy really know what they have let in? And I said, the experience we had in NASA, maybe it was good riddance. At that time, I thought Kalonzo, Mudavadi, and Wetangula would hold us intact as we moved on after the handshake. I was saying this because anywhere and everywhere that Raila has gone, he's gone there to create problems. Just before the election of 2002, Raila moved into Kano, became Secretary General, caused them a lot of problems, and Kenyans know that he completely lit that house on fire. In 2005, while in NAC, he caused Kibaki a lot of problems, and the government had to be reconstituted afresh. I therefore have no doubt that the only objective that Raila has in going to Jubilee, and I'm not defending Jubilee, is to go and wreck that particular coalition or party for that matter. The experience which the deputy president and the president should have borrowed from was, before the handshake, the experience was that one of the national reconciliation and the national accord that gave birth to the Grand Coalition government. The experience was that to work with Raila, you have to put everything in black and white. So because there is nothing insulated by law in terms of the handshake, they are going to see problems upon problems. My comment on the issue of Amolo Tiende asking people to leave Jubilee, it's amazing that the people who have said the deputy president and his supporters should leave Jubilee if they feel dissatisfied are the following. It is Amolo Tiende, it is Mheshimiwa Kamanda, Simba Aradi, and Anthony Aluoch, together with Wambugu, MP of Nyeri Central. The rest of the governors of Jubilee, senators of Jubilee, hundreds of MPs of Jubilee have not asked the deputy president to leave the party. So I ask Otiende Amolo, are you not confirming that your intention is for you to cause trouble in Jubilee? Why don't you prepare yourself and compete with Jubilee in 2022? Finally, the issue of corruption. I have not heard, not Uhuru, not Raila, not Ruto, not Mudavadi, not Wetangula, or Kalonzo, saying that the fight against corruption should be stopped. They all support. The only difference is that it is Ruto who has come out clearly that as we fight corruption, we must do it within the framework of the law. But as far as Raila is concerned, all that is required to fight corruption is to create a narrative, to create a perception that corruption is being fought, when actually what you are aiming for is mob lynching. Tell me, how would Amolo Otiende, who sits on the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, not be the first to ask for a special forensic audit into the expenditure of all those dams by the Auditor General before they say that money was lost or not lost?
Right.
I listened to the Deputy President when he was mentioning the issue of the 7 billion. And it has become clearer because I pursued it, and I discovered that the said 21 billion, the said loss of money, is actually money that was used to pay insurance companies. The lion's share was used to pay insurance companies. And I have looked at the insurance companies, Debarl, none of them belongs to Ruto, none of them belongs to Akalenjin. In fact, those insurance companies, with due respect to Amatangi here,
right,
one belongs to John Michuki, another one belongs to Charles Njonjo, another one belongs to another late guy who died recently, businessman from Central Province. So why are they pinning it on the Deputy President and the Kalenjin community?
All right, thank you. Thank you. We need to take a short break. When we circle back, we'll continue.
You come back to me.
Yeah, we will come back to you.
Yes. I'm not finished.
I
have just started.
Okay. These revelations are good, but we need to give him a lecture this morning to just stand and preach. Right, we want to take a short break right now. When we circle back, of course, we'll play you that lengthy bites of the slugfest that has been there between Ruto and Raila as far as the dam projects are concerned. New revelations are coming also from our panelists as well as to who also the insurers were as well. So don't go away. When we circle back, we shall continue with that. I think I got just a minute to read one or two tweets here. We have Dr. Jen Omwenga, of course, expressing her condolences here. Condolences to the families who lost their loved ones in Ethiopia and a plane crash. Nicodemus Mwanya is saying, cracks in Jubilee are irreparable. It is time to fall out. And we have also Langat Kiprop. He says, we always deny these things, Honorable, until we are left with no option. That is addressed to Otena Molo. Even you guys, up to date, you have never admitted NASA vanished long ago. It is funny how you, like Uhuru, sooner or later, you will be there bashing him when Raila does what he knows best. And we have also Nderitu Nyaga saying, how can serious leaders differ on account of fight against corruption? Kenyans are united on this. And also Langat Kiprop is saying, Jubilee was injected with a cancer virus. It's slowly dying, and that tells you how political betrayals in Kenya. This sometimes serious consequences and can cut short the peace, and political temperatures may go higher than was anticipated. Also, we have Kip Kazi, the chief. An informative show, always tuned in from the shows of Left Victoria. We appreciate you tuning in this morning. Also, we do have Abdi Rashid Abdullahi saying Jubilee Party is very fast approaching its dead end, not because of handshake, but it has served its purpose of being alive, securing the second term for Uhuru Kenyatta. Those are your tweets. We shall be also sampling some of them much later in the course of the program. But for now, we'll take a short break. When we circle back, we'll play that particular bite of the week that has been as far as politics is concerned, and looking at the current state of play as far as politics also is concerned. Don't go away. Much more coming up on the other side of the break.
Vita ni yetu sisi wote kama Wakenya. Tuungane ndio tuhakikishe ya kwamba tumemaliza hiyo vita na wananchi wamepata haki yao.
You should not blink one eye. Blink and lose this war against corruption. Your legacy will be destroyed forever.
Mega scandals after the other. Money being paid for projects that are not implemented. Money transferred from our bank accounts in Kenya. And this money is going into account of certain people. These are criminals where we must take radical actions to deal with this cancer of corruption in our country. Otherwise, we will not have a country tomorrow.
We've heard, for example, that the government has lost 21 billion in Kimwarer and I don't know, Aror Dam, which is a flat lie. The money in question is about 7 billion.
If you are talking about the theft of the dams, and figures are there, don't come and tell us that it was not 20 billion, it was only 7. Let the investigation authorities complete the investigations. Who are you to tell us? How did you know? You are the thief who is trying to show us that, oh, the thief running away.
The question that I am being asked is actually like a hyena asking a herdsman, what is your interest in your herd? And why do you know the number of the livestock you are keeping? Honestly, why wouldn't a herdsman have an interest in the herd he's keeping and the number?
You hear about these mega corruptions, and they're not fictions. They are facts, they're allegations. But then, when this happens, the matter is highly politicized. Instead of the politicians leaving the institutions charged with the responsibility to deal with them, politicians take it upon themselves to rush to funeral gatherings of our communities being targeted.
Sisi tulikubali handshake kama Wakenya. Tukakubali kama viongozi mpaka viongozi wa bonde la ufa. Lakini ulikuja na handshake na maneno mingi na siasa ya 2022. Mimi nataka nikuambie Mr. Raila na nataka niombe rais wetu. Kama mko na mpango, kama hutaki kwenda nyumbani Mr. President, tell us. Tubadilishe katiba, tukae chini, tuelewane. Lakini maneno ya kukoroga maneno huko kando mnasunguka sijui huyu, handshake sijui ile, sijui tunataka tushike huyu, sijui tunataka tufuguse huyu kwa sababu mnatafuta William Ruto. Mimi nataka niwaambie kinagaubaga ya kwamba Wakenya sio wajinga na sisi kama viongozi wa bondo la ufa tumechoka na maneno ya upuzi. Maneno ya damu hii mnakuja mnasumbuka naye sio kwa sababu mnatafuta maneno ya damu. Sisi tunajua ya kwamba wakati maneno ya JKA ililipuka, sasa mnataka kufunika na maneno ya damu. Tunataka tuambie nyinyi my friend, William Ruto ako na watu wao. Na William Ruto ni kiongozi wa Kenya na tunajua amevumilia. Na mimi niliuliza swali rais. Wakati William Ruto alikuwa na support Raila Odinga, hakukuwa mwizi. Wakati alikuja akasupport Uhuru Kenyatta, hakukuwa mwizi. Saa hii bila anataka imefika wakati yake mnasema ni mwizi. Tutakutana na nyinyi na Mungu yuko na tutapambana na nyinyi matajiri ya Wakenya hii. Yenye mnafikiria nyinyi ndio kila kitu. Na tutasema si ati hatujui vitu yenye mmeiba nyinyi watu. Waisi wakubwa ni nyinyi. Na hiyo ndio siku itafika na ile kitu mnatafuta mtapata. Na hiyo siku inakuja.
Niliona mwingine akisema sijui nimeiba mali ya nani. Mimi namwambia wewe tembea hapa Karura Forest hapa. Ofisi ziko hapo. Kwenda useme Uhuru kile ameiba. Shida iko wapi jameni? What is the problem? Lakini hii mambo ya kutishatisha watu ati kwa sababu umetaja kitu kwa mazishi, huyo mtu ambaye amekufa hata kusaidia.
And if somebody is stealing, don't go and shout there and tell us that, oh, 7 billion shillings is nothing. 7 billion shillings is not pocket change. Sio pesa ya kununua mandazi.
We will not allow people whose signature is keeping people in the slavery of poverty and fighting every development initiative using fake data, fake news, and false information to try and scuttle the development agenda that we have set for our country. As they weave together these narratives and create these falsehoods,
let them not target William Ruto or individuals. This is not about a person, personalities, or mandasinomics. This is about 100,000 people in Aurora and Kimwarer who will get drinking water. This is about tens of thousands of land that will be turned into agricultural land. This is about changing the lives of people who are today victims of cattle rustling and making them have a living and a future. That is what we must focus on. Forget about focusing on the petty politics of 2022 and William Ruto and some mandasinomics you have been telling us about.
Government appears to want us to accept these scandals as normal, provided that there is some state-led rhetoric about it.
Na makamu wa rais, mimi niliona Musalia Mudavadi anamkosoa waziri wa fedha Henry Rotich. Mimi nikashangaa. Nikapatana na Musalia Mudavadi hapa kwa mkao mwingine Nairobi juzi. Nikamwambia, wewe ulikuwa waziri wa fedha? Akanambia ndio. Wakati wake ndio Patni akaiba pesa mingi Kenya. Hakuna waziri wa fedha tangu Kenya ipate uhuru ambaye pesa ziliporwa kuliko wakati wa Musalia Mudavadi. Golemba, kama kuna mwizi mkubwa wa waziri wa fedha wa Kenya wamtafute kila mahali ni Musalia Mudavadi. Wakati alikuwa waziri wa local government, bunge la 10, mimi nilikuwa ndani. Musalia Mudavadi alipatikana katika ile kashfa ya makaburi. Alikuwa ameiba makaburi huko Machakos. Sasa wewe nikuulize mtu wa bure hapa. Mtu alienda kuiba makaburi, akapanga njama ati watu wafufuliwe, ajenge manyumba hapo. Huyo mtu anaweza kutuambia maneno ya ufisadi? Hapana.
The office of the DPP and the office of the DCI, we support what you are doing, but we as a party have said that there is too much talk and too little action.
When we tell DCI, when we tell EACC, conduct credible investigations, take the right people to court and charge them and secure convictions. We are not saying it because we do not want corruption to be fought. Lakini ukiongea unaambiwa huyo anapigana na vita dhidi ya ufisadi. Sisi tunapigana na vita ya uongo, ya propaganda na upuzi ya kujifanya tunapigana na ufisadi wakati ni siasa tunafanya na maisha ya wengine.
Ladies and gentlemen, the biggest threat to the war on corruption is selective prosecutions targeting predetermined individuals or projects. And secondly, rumor mongers, propagandists, and peddlers of half-truths, exaggerations, and distortions meant for media headlines to execute covert political schemes, which in and of itself constitute obstruction of justice. Known political frauds, whose word means nothing, neither have the legitimacy nor integrity to lecture anyone on matters corruption or integrity.
Well, the political tone and tenor of the week that has been, of course, just giving you a feel and flavor of that and how also is really changing the political landscape of the country. Also, this is the editorial cartoon that we had yesterday in the Daily Nation as far as IGA is concerned. And we left Boni Halole commenting, right? And you can also comment on this particular, is the Camel now pushing out Ruto from the Jubilee tent?
I leave that for my brother Otiendo Molo. And Kimani Wamatangi.
You yourself, you're not in this tent?
This one?
This the tent that we can see here.
I'm still in Fort Kenya, but at the pleasure, but at the pleasure of the Senate. So he thinks. I'm glad that you've played those clips.
Yes.
It confirms what I'd said, that Raila has created or wants to create a narrative that the deputy president is corrupt, himself, his friends, and his community. And he wants to allow that narrative to sink so that people think he's supporting the fight against corruption when he's playing politics of 2022. On the other hand, as you have heard from the deputy president himself, he's saying, yes, we must fight corruption, but within the confines of the law. Let me remind Kenyans that this is not the first time an attempt is being made to fight corruption. In Parliament, when I was there and Eseli was there, we had an opportunity to prosecute mega corruption scandals. This included kazi kwa vijana, loss of money scandal. We used the law. We used the investigative agencies, and we made a conclusion that left nothing in doubt. Similarly, we did it on the case of, and by the way, kazi kwa vijana was with the former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, that scandal. We visited the issue of abuse of free primary education funds. The problem was at the doorsteps of Professor Ongeri. We concluded it. We visited the issue of Grand Regency Hotel and the issue of the printing of new currency notes, where over 1.8 billion shillings had been used.
Thank you.
We concluded it and left it at the doorsteps of Kimunya. So I want to insist that on this particular one, now that we are on the dams, somebody should tell us, especially the president himself. He was the Minister for Finance. Since when would a Minister of Finance be able to execute against government financial procedures and regulations agreements that involve billions of shillings?
Thank you.
It is not possible. May I make my point? It is not possible that Rotich would have concluded these mega payments without involvement of A, the Attorney General, and B, the accounting officer, Kamau Thuge. If these people were fighting corruption, we would be seeing Kamau Thuge and Attorney General Kariuki also being interrogated by the DCI. The fact that they have left them, they are driving the narrative again and again because Rotich happens to be a Kalenjin.
But
we are saying no.
That they've been left? The investigation is still ongoing.
No. In fact, let me tell you how government works, man. In fact, it should not have started that way.
Thank you.
They would have started with the accounting officer, who is the PS. Then they go to the Attorney General, who drew the agreements between those companies, Italian companies, and the government of Kenya.
Thank you.
And not the other way around.
I think I beg to differ with my friend Dr. Halwale when he talks about the Attorney General. The Attorney General then was Githu Muigai.
Is it?
The Attorney General then, who was Githu Muigai, gave an advisory against the whole thing. So I don't see where the Attorney General comes in. Then
against the dam project.
Yes, there is
That's
this.
not true.
No, he gave an
If the Attorney General disapproves,
we have a
no government would have paid.
You
have to give us time.
You clarify. You
have to give us time. You're misleading the public.
You're misleading. If I'm lying,
he's misleading the public.
Then you will get your time. You will get your time.
Please let him have his head and complete his comments.
The Attorney General was not Kariuki. Yes, it was Githu Muigai.
That's true.
That is true. Clear that the Attorney General gave an advisory that they should follow within the law, whatever they are doing. Yes. Now, this issue of intimidating anybody who appears to be talking against corruption and using politics to intimidate them is not right. Because like my majority leader, Dwale, he has forgotten a very important thing. He didn't say everything. Because when he talks of Goldenberg and Makaburi land in Machakos, he's forgetting that the same person he's defending had an issue with the Gong Forest and Kenya Pipeline. Had an issue with Muteshi's land and all that. Had an issue with the Western land. And all these have gone through due process, and he has admitted that actually, like the Muteshi land, he was an innocent buyer. Same to the Western land, he was an innocent buyer. He happens to be innocent in all this buying of these properties. Duale forgot that. But the most painful thing is when we say it's all targeting one community. I don't think Eugene Wamalwa is a Kalenjin and is also being questioned. Mwangi Kiunjuri is not a Kalenjin and is also being questioned. Have you heard anybody in Bungoma or Trans Nzoia for that matter stand up to say that Eugene should not be questioned? Have you heard anybody from Kiunjuri's backyard saying that Kiunjuri should not be questioned? So this issue of saying it's being politicized, it's a smokescreen to torpedo the whole thing. But Kenyans are watching. Even those of us who are seated on this bench, we've seen people who are suddenly living in opulence, right from all the arms of government, from parliament to the executive to the judiciary. We've seen people within a very short time living in opulence, like what Oloitip said, not Oloitip, the late Ntimama said that he has seen people who have come into parliament wearing suits like they slept in them, and now suddenly they are wearing designer shoes and designer suits. Where have they got this wealth? And that question asked by this Ole Ntimama that time applies more even now. And indeed, if the rep of the country continues, and then we use politics and tell the people that you people, you are poor, follow me, I'll rescue you from poverty, leave these rich people, yet that we know there are rich people who have made their riches genuinely, but now it's being said like anybody who has made their wealth genuinely is being lumped together with those who have looted.
Thank you.
Until now, being a son of a poor man has become a qualification for leadership.
Let's hear from Atenda Molo.
Interesting times indeed. Let me start from where Dr. Seli has left. This idea of bemoaning that the war on corruption has been tribalized. You know, even people from my clan, Katwenga clan, and my constituency, would want their equitable share of prosecutions. We demand that we also see one of our own being prosecuted. But we cannot, because there's none of them in any prosecutable position. You cannot be arrested for a crime if you are not on the scene of crime. If by any coincidence, as Iseli was saying, that scene of crime is populated by people from a certain area, then when people are being arrested, they must be arrested. So it speaks to the inequitable distribution of positions in government, and that is one of the things we want to rectify. Secondly, the bemoaning that you hear from Dr. Halwale, from Senator Cheruiyot, from Senator Matangi, and for the record, Senator Matangi never answered your question. When it comes to him stand, please ask him to answer your question. Is Jubilee in turmoil? He avoided it and went to NASA and went everywhere else because he doesn't want to answer it. Because probably he doesn't want to be called a fool, as Senator Cheruiyot was saying. The only issue that has arisen right now, even since the handshake, is the war on corruption. The war on corruption is not a new war. The corruption allegations are not new. They didn't happen yesterday. Whether it's Aror Dam, whether it's Kemerer Dam, all these things, you see they're 3-4 years back. What has happened that has changed is that there's a new impetus and a good ground to actually now raise these issues and to investigate them. I agree with Senator Cheruiyot, and this we have always agreed on, that other than just raising them in the media, there is need to follow up and meaningfully prosecute them. Now, that I agree with. But fighting impunity comes in 4 stages. The first one is the confidence to raise impropriety. Now they are being raised. The second one is the confidence to investigate. I believe they're investigating. The third one is to mount meaningful prosecutions. And the fourth and last is to sentence those found guilty. Now, if anybody complains that in the course of the investigations, there are people who have been left out, it is very simple. One, say who they are. But more importantly, the law allows you to mount a private prosecution. That is something we used to do a lot
when the attorneys general were prosecutors and they would fail to prosecute what needs to be prosecuted, you bring the evidence, as Senator Cheruiyot keeps telling us that he has mounts of evidence, you bring it, mount it up there, and once it's out there, the DPP will be forced to take it up and prosecute. But in any event, then the world will know who was left out. Now, it is very sad when you hear a man like Dr. Boni Halwale speak the way he does. For starters, when Dr. Boni Halwale is your hatchet man, you have to be very careful. The choice words he's using against Raila now, only recently he was using against Ruto. So trust me, he can switch any time again, you know. So what he says you can't believe. Because either what he was saying of William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta was false then as he was praising Raila, or what he's saying of Raila is false now as he's praising William Ruto. So he's a man who can't be taken. But in the course of it, he makes interesting revelations.
Yes.
So Dr. Boni Halwale wants us to believe that there is no corruption because of the 21 billion that was alleged, 14 billion went to insurance, because that is the difference. Why would you spend 14 billion shillings on insuring project in which you've spent 7 billion? That in itself would be corruption. So even if you were to believe him and those who speak like him, it is good reason to investigate. And why would you insure what has not been done? When you are buying a vehicle and you're given money to buy a vehicle, you buy the vehicle first. Then you buy insurance for that vehicle which is stuck on it. You don't insure the expectation to buy a vehicle. No. Right now, in Aror and Kimarer Dam, and they're getting jittery. Yes. Right now, if you go to those places, there's just bare land. In fact, the owners of the land have not even been approached to sell it. And yet the money has been paid for those dams. So what are you insuring? The homes that are yet to be bought over. Yeah. So, I mean, even if you took their logic, it still becomes very illogical to resist investigation.
Thank you.
My final take on it is that I think that attacking Raila for issues that might be internal to Jubilee because of raised expectations is completely wrong. We must admit, and the truth is, Jubilee as an establishment was in itself founded on quicksand. The entire foundation of Jubilee was the ICC. The ICC is now gone. There is no other uniting factor.
Thank you. Wamatangi,
No,
it's you, eh? Oh, okay. No,
it's me. I haven't spoken. No, I haven't. It's normally a sale, then me, then Otiende.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, Wamatangi will come to you.
Siberia.
Please prepare to tell us if the Jubilee House is still in order. All right, Senator Cheruiyot.
You know, these things are very complex, and I'll later on be coming to a point of departure with what Debarl is alleging. But first of all, it's good to put things in perspective, Debarl, of what is the real issue. The real issue is the war on corruption, where we have two fronts. One, you have the person of a deputy president who has so ably, so clearly, and in a concise way said that let us fight corruption, let us give all the organs that are supposed to fight corruption the necessary room to do their work in a professional way under the confines of law. That is team A. On team B, you have this team that we have radically disagreed with, led by none other than Raila Odinga, who want to tell us that so long as whatever is being mentioned enhances his political fortunes, then it is good for the fight against corruption. Because Debarl, Raila tells us that we should not raise any particular question. And you know, it is important also, Otiende. Sometimes when you're gifted with the kind of intelligence you have, we help our party leaders navigate through some of these complex issues. When the deputy president says it is 7 billion in question, does it mean that 7 billion has been lost? Of course, nothing could be further from the truth. He has said the money that you people are raising, having been paid to the contractor, is 7 billion shillings. But he hasn't said that the money has been lost. So for you, Otiende Amolo, to come and try and pursue the same line of thought and say 7 billion shillings has been lost, I think you're insulting the intelligence of Kenyans. And it's not fair. And the salient point that we keep on making is that so long as the war on corruption will continue being a political tool, we will never win this war. And that is why when we say that let us divorce politics from this particular process, it is us who are more interested in seeing this war being won than those that pretend to be the champions. Because it appears to me that to Raila Odinga, this is just another opportunity to mudsling and appear to be, you know, the czar on the war on corruption. Yet the truth of the matter is that the questions that he used to ask pre-handshake, why has he all of a sudden gone silent on? We no longer hear him raise issues of Eurobond, no longer hear him raise issues on the scandal that was in the health ministry, because to him it is no longer a convenient tool in his logic and in his thinking. Because President Uhuru Kenyatta is supposed to be retiring, it is no longer useful for him. Therefore, what is useful for him? To look for an opportunity to throw mud at his perceived political enemies. That is where we are losing this war on corruption. When we have people who look at it as an opportunity to taint their perceived political enemies, then we lose it. You know, he asked, the former Prime Minister asked a very interesting question.
Yes.
He says, how do you know that it was 7 billion shillings? And you know, my mind quickly rushes back to his defense when he served as Prime Minister and there was a Kazi kwa Vijana scandal in his office. His line of defense then was, this was undertaken by officers in my office. So you have these public officers who occupy very great and significant public offices, but all they do is to play with the AC controller in the office and don't care for whatever is happening, such that when scandals come, you want to pass and apportion blame. For heaven's sake, this is a deputy president. He sits in cabinet where these documents are approved. And they say he is supposed to know. In fact, it will be so wrong and abrogation of his responsibilities as deputy president if he didn't know the exact figures. Finally, to a point that Otiende raises, and you know, these issues of syndicated loans, EPC plus F financing, are not matters that you would ordinarily just wake up and come and address the nation on. For your information, Otiende, this insurance is not for the dam. The insurance is for the loan. That is what you need to know.
Yes.
Therefore, you cannot come on national television and try and tell us that why are you paying insurance
But
14 billion?
was the insurance blotted? Because
Sorry?
is it blotted? Because at 14 billion shillings and 1 billion shillings,
Now,
there's a difference of 13 billion shillings.
when those are the kind of questions that we want to get answers for, you know.
Thank you.
And it is not. Listen. Let me conclude.
No,
it is not only on Timwarer and Aror. We want to see. That's why we are saying this war is targeted, because the same model of financing, the same model of insuring has been used for Thwake, has been used for Karimenu, has been used for Muchoi Dam. Why the focus only on Itare? We want to see non-selective prosecution. And I believe the war that EACC is waging on corruption is genuine. The war that DPP is waging on corruption is genuine. But the DCI is behaving like a sniff dog that can only sniff at what it has been pointed to. That is the problem that we have with him.
All right, let's say from Omatangi, you think this is there's a particular intent from the DCI to actually target a certain community as is being put, that we can see also the cabinet secretary is being targeted because he comes from that community?
You know, Debarl, one conviction that I think I have now.
Start by answering my question, then you go to your conviction.
Well, once you've posed the questions to me, you let me answer.
I've learned your strategy. I think I've learned your strategy. This reverse psychology that you play on this show.
And now you're distracting me.
Okay then.
You're distracting me, and I want to be sure that you're not playing the game with Otiende Amolo, because Otiende fears my point.
Okay,
so Otiende, you know, you can ask me the questions directly. Stop roping in Debarl so that you can distract me. But, you know, Debarl, I wanted to first make my point clearly. I think now I'm more convinced than ever before, because I've been trying to look at various ways when we talk about the fight against corruption and how we advance. I'm more convinced than ever before that why you see countries, other jurisdictions that have succeeded in the fight against corruption have used other methods. For example, if you look at countries that practice Sharia law, they have largely succeeded. If you look at countries that have imposed martial law, at times of the fight against corruption, they have succeeded. Because it is evident that you cannot trust politicians and a political system to advance and fight and sustain the war against corruption. I don't think it is possible. And that is one thing that we have to deal with. Because if we are genuine about this fight against corruption, we have to answer this question. Are politicians the best people, even though we have given them the constitutional legitimacy to lead the country, to also lead the fight against corruption? Because two things. One of the important things we have to say, and these are facts that you cannot run away from. You see, any case that you bring before a court of law can only be based on evidence to succeed. And if you look at the debate that politicians have been advancing against the whole front of corruption, is political innuendo, it is imagination, it is thinking that he is boxing me and I'm going to box him, that I want to get this, so this one is trying to stand in my way. And at the end of the day, unless any of these cases lands in a court of law with evidence that you cannot be able to purge, it will all be hopeless. And that's what I'm saying, Debarl, that if we divorce and remove politicians from this fight right now, leave the institutions that are left, that have been given the mandate by law, and then until the time when they bring evidence, then we can come in as politicians to say that either this is justifiable or not justifiable, this is true or is not true, it is evidence-based or it is not evidence-based. Then that way, we will be getting somewhere. Right now, what you're having is a huge cloud of dust, and everybody blowing and shouting. You know what you would call, you describe in those English words as cacophony. You know, just a lot of, you know, noise making. Why can't we pull back? And it doesn't matter what rank you hold in this country. Pull back, leave the fight against corruption to the institutions. If there are allegations that have been made, let them go to those institutions.
Thank you,
and then once you have had that evidence, once you have the prosecutions, or once you have the matter on the table, then come out and say, this is not right and this is not right.
Okay.
Now, to answer the last question that Otiende asked through you, and this was, and this was, is Jubilee built on quicksand or is Jubilee in turmoil? I said very clearly, Debarl, it's only that Otiende was not listening to me. I'm sure he must have been reading the Constitution. That you know, Otiende Amolo, the day when we formed Jubilee, we were clear in our minds that we do not want to live in a loophole, whereby at a time when things may not be as ordinary and when passions may be strained, that people are going to be dashing for the door. That's what I said. And that is why we folded all the parties, formed one party called Jubilee, so that we can be able to go to the end. And what I have said clearly and loudly is this, that absolutely there is no way, no room, no option for anyone either to leave Jubilee, to want to leave Jubilee, or even to be pushed out of Jubilee, because we have already formatted ourselves as one unit that will go to the end. And whatever is happening right now, we will have to address it as a party and as a government, the good and the bad and the ugly. And we have to make sure that what comes out at the end of the day is what Kenyans want out of a responsible government.
All right. There is this editorial cartoon that actually...
You promised me right of response.
You will in a moment. I want also you to comment on this, because you're the one who raised, and Matangi, this particular editorial cartoon that we have there. We can see this is Jubilee is intact. Raila is the one trying to split it. And I think this is actually a comment that you had mentioned, that wherever Raila has actually gone, things have come up, you know, they've come asunder. And we can see the mudslinging that is going on. I want you to comment on this, Boni Khalwale, this particular editorial cartoon, briefly.
Precisely, and I think I said it ahead of this particular display on the screen, that the experiences of what Raila has done everywhere he has gone should have sufficiently informed President Uhuru and his deputy to avoid him, not to touch him even with a 10-foot pole, but they made a mistake. Now he's in Jubilee. He's going to continue causing problems until he achieves what he wants, i.e., to make sure that by the time they reach 2022, he faces a weakened deputy president who has wrongly been labeled to be, shall I say, the high priest of corruption in this country. Let me tell you, Mheshimiwa Seli, I beg you, you know me very well. I'm a lawyer. I am not a Kalenjin in any way. Neither am I a Luo. So when I speak to the issue of avoid ethnicization of the fight against corruption, I'm not doing it to defend my community. Look, today, a visitor coming to Kenya would be forgiven if he thought that the person who stole the money for dams is a young man called Chelugui. Chelugui found when this money has moved through the following 7 hands. One, the money of implementation of this project started with here CS Wamalwa. It was quickly moved to Waiguru, who did some work, Ministry of Devolution. It was then moved to Wahungu at the Environment. It was then moved to Mwangi Chunjuri of Agriculture. It was later moved to Peter Munya, and now it is with Adan. That's exactly how these dams have been moving. But today, the only people being put under the microscope are Rotich and Chelugoi. That to me means somebody doesn't want to do a fair job of investigation. Instead, they want to pin down these two Kenyans because they come from the same community with the deputy president.
Thank you.
My brother, if we allow this to continue, innocent people will pay for this when we have long moved on. The issue raised by Honorable the leader of the majority, Adwale, in the National Assembly.
Yes.
Kenyans have moved on. They don't know that a permanent secretary was jailed because of that scandal.
Town clerk.
A town clerk was jailed, and in fact, that town clerk died of a heart attack. He couldn't believe he's being jailed for money he had not stolen. So we will move on, and innocent people will start dying in jail or will end up being jailed when the big ones should have been the ones taking responsibility.
Aaron Joriot.
Yeah.
That editorial cartoon, we can see this is Deputy President William Ruto, and that is Uhuru Kenyatta. Jubilee is intact. Raila is the one trying to split it.
I don't agree with it because it's not true.
The mudslinging that is ongoing.
I have said, and I'm very clear on this, that whatever is happening in our party, we can only blame ourselves. And if it is in terms of apportioning blame, because they say that he who is without sin, let him be the first to cast a stone. But if you are to rank in terms of who have sinned the most, then it is with our party leadership. That is the president and his deputy. So long as you're not speaking to your party, even this war on corruption, Debarl, I want to believe that the president will find very able lieutenants to assist him, because I personally want a country that is free of corruption. As an elected senator, I feel so strongly about this issue because I know how much it denies opportunities to many of our young people in this republic. Unfortunately, when we have issues on how the war is being waged and have no opportunity or platform to raise these issues with the party leadership other than through either mediums like forum like what we are here on or the floor of parliament, then they are bound to be the kind of issues that are rising. It is not until the president, who is our party leader, takes a deliberate effort to say, I have heard from all the other quarters of the country, let me also listen to my parliamentary group, the team that I was given by the people of Kenya or Jubilee Party members to work with, and listen to them on what they think about many of these issues that we continue to face on a daily basis. These things will continue. You'll have us speaking on one corner, then you have the other team that is perceived to be more loyal to the president throwing mud at the deputy. It's a very ugly scene. Therefore, I urge the party leadership, which is none other than the president and his deputy, to put the party in order. The only way you can do that is provide an avenue where leaders get to sit and talk like we used to do in the last 5
All
years.
right. So, Dr. Eseli, you think that what they're saying, that the handshake was just a conmanship intended to actually block the Deputy President from becoming a president?
Debarl, usually I talk for
This is what Murkomen was saying.
I usually talk for a very short time, but you'll allow me to talk for a bit longer. One, the handshake has had its benefits to the country.
That's true.
But we now need to handle it very carefully. There are many forces out to disrupt it. So we need to handle it very carefully, especially when we are in this anti-corruption war. Mine is to encourage the president to keep his eye on the ball, on the war against corruption, and not be distracted by all this noise. Because all said and done, the cost of these dams is astronomical. I remember in the 10th Parliament, they wanted to set up a dam in my constituency, and Lugari constituency. It was going to be 45 square kilometers. That dam was going to cost less than 4 billion shillings. How come these ones are costing so much? This Anglo-leasing type of contracts, where we are borrowing money and then being given the contractors and then coming to implement. These are the Anglo-leasing type of contracts that we as Kenyans should refuse. When the DP says there was only 7 billion involved, and the investigative and the Treasury says it was 21 billion, I believe what the DP should have said is that he's aware of 7 billion. And if it is 21 billion, those responsible for that excess payment should face the law. That's what the DP should have said. Then we would have believed him. But otherwise, it's not good to intimidate the EACC, the DCI, and the Auditor General in this fight against corruption. You know, show me in Kenya any huge irrigation program that has worked. The latest is the Galana Kulalu project, which flopped spectacularly. So these huge dams, which are supposed to also provide irrigation projects, I think it's a sham. The sad thing is this, and this is very sad for Kenyans. Kenyans should be aware that this corruption money is channeled back into the political system. And this same money is going to ensure that people of good quality will lose at the next ballot. And those people who are peddling this corruption money will be the ones elected. The carpetbaggers will eventually take over leadership of this country away from the good people, because the good people don't have access to this corruption money, and this corruption money, come 2022, is going to flood the electoral cycle. Kenyans should be aware, and I've always said this, and I'll repeat it again. Kenyans must not and should not attempt at all, under whatever circumstances, in 2022 to touch Jubilee. They should not touch Jubilee with a 10-foot pole. Come 2022, they should just dump that party and move to somebody else, because these ones, their record can be summed up with one letter: C, corruption.
All right, 2022, will there be a Jubilee? That's the probing question as it is right now. Maybe Otiende will tell us.
Well, he's a local consultant on Jubilee matter. He's advising who should move.
You know that Senator Chiruyot started by saying only a fool would think there's no problem, and we posed that question to Amatangi. He gave a very long poetry, but no real response to that issue. Because the issue was not who is to say who lives. The issue is there a problem? If you are honest, you'd be like Chiruyot and you start by saying yes, and then we move on. So please accept and move on. Now, hold on. That is the truth. But the problem, the issue is the problem in Jubilee caused by Raila. We come back to that cartoon. If you could just display that cartoon, I think I like it.
The mudslinging?
Yes, the mudslinging.
Okay, just a moment. Yeah, just continue, yes.
Yes, and you ask yourself, is Raila in that picture? He's not. And that sums it up. The problems of Jubilee are in Jubilee. Raila is not in Jubilee, Dr. Halwale. Raila is still in ODM. So Jubilee must just sort out its problems as Jubilee. We are focusing not on Jubilee's problems, we are focusing on national problems, which right now is corruption. Now, there's a tendency now, and Dr. Seli has spoken to this, that to put, to cover up corruption, one of them is to say, oh, we are being targeted as a tribe. The other one is to say, no, the media are exaggerating. The third one is to say, no, the problem is Raila.
And the fourth one is to raise counter accusations. Either like Boni is saying, ati kazi kwa vijana lost some money when Raila was in charge, or as Senator Cheruiyot is saying that there are other dams. All those is called, in one word, scapegoating. First of all, let's talk about these dams. 21 billion for 2 dams. That is 6 times the budget that my county, Siaya, gets. It gets about 3.5 billion. One county gets 21 billion worth of investment in dams, quite apart from what it gets normally in the budget. Even if you go no further than that, that in itself is corruption through budget making. But then you come to this one and you find, one, the cost is settled before the designs were made. How? 2, there were no designs up to now. 2, the cost is settled, and yet the land on which they were to be built have not been secured. The National Land Commission only 2 weeks ago now put up an advert of intention to acquire the land. 3, it is contracted out, not in an open tender, but what now they're trying to describe as government-to-government tender. Government-to-government tender on what account? And then it's contracted to a broke company, which somehow, strangely, wires back a lot of that money back to the country to buy towels and tiles and other such things, you know. And then you tell us that when we raise these issues, this is not the fight against corruption. This is targeting individuals. I think it is belittling the intelligence of Kenyans. If you think that there are 5 other dams that have similar issues, then you should raise those very issues. But you cannot say that now don't raise it in respect of these 2 because they are not the only ones. I like what one of the viewers has tweeted. You know, I think there's a guy called Dismas, and he says, Raila is not ESCC, is not DPP, is not DCI. So Ruto and Murkomen are not being investigated. Nobody has called them to answer any query regarding the dams. Is there more than meets the eye? I think that's the bottom line. What I would add there is that Raila is neither of those 3 agencies. Raila is also not the commander-in-chief. Raila is also not a judge. So where in this is Raila coming in? And if you say it's being sensationalized, Raila does not own a media house. When you have the kind of information that the man formerly known as Boni Mtotezi appears to have, including of the channels, the people through whose hands those things went, then you should go to DCI and give them that information. Don't attack them. Help them.
Thank you. Don't attack
them. Thank you very much.
Help them.
I have 4 quick points.
Quick points. And it's also, we wanted to know also, before you continue with the points, let's take 3 for the interest of time, so that you can add this one.
Okay.
The towels, the tiles. Is there any rhyme or reason why we had these tiles and the towels as well in the construction of these dams? Where do they come in?
I will answer you.
And also information coming to hand says that some of these towels find their way to, you know, some of the properties owned by Deputy President William Ruto, Western Hotel, and that the Diani also beachfronts as well.
4 quick points. Number 1, on the question of whether the problems in Jubilee have been caused by Raila, the answer, I agree with Otiende on this one, is no. We can only blame ourselves, because in any case, if it is about any particular issues that we have within our party, we have the capacity within ourselves to address these challenges. And therefore, Raila, to me, on this particular issue, is a non-issue. But on the question of why you think that some of us have issues with him, and this is in particular answer to Otiende, is because of his rumor-mongering habits. You know, where on every weekend where you stand, you claim this amount of money has been lost. Why is Otiende so quick to tell those of us who are volunteering information and saying this is not accurate to go to DCI? But when it comes to his party leader, who has alleged previously that 5 billion has been lost at health ministry, Eurobond money never go to this country, Otiende has never once told him to go and report the same to DCI. So this reporting to DCI is only applicable to Murkomen and the Deputy President, but not Raila when he rumor-mongers. It is this kind of hypocrisy that we are saying is not good for the fight against corruption. What is good for the goose should also be good for the gander. Thirdly, on the issue of media exaggeration, tell me one issue that the media has reported since we began all this issue on the one corruption and said this amount of money is what has been lost, and when you get to the court documents to see what people are being charged with, they tally. You reported 9 billion shillings
on NYS, up to date, only 400 million shillings worth of prosecution papers are in court. You reported 63 billion in Kenya Pipeline, an organization whose turnover is hardly 30 billion shillings. Therefore, when we call you to question to media, as to you people as media, Debarl, it is not because we hate you or we don't like the work that you're doing. We are only telling you to do better than what you're doing. You know, Debarl, yes, there are credible media houses in this world. When they report something, it is as good as final and people believe. Unfortunately, with the Kenyan media, when you read our newspapers, what you're reading last week, you cannot be sure what to believe and what not to believe. It is not a secret in this town that for 30,000 shillings, I can get a headline against Otiende Amolo and says he has stolen X amount of money. That is what you are speaking against. We want also the media to be above this rumor mongering. They must be credible in the information that they are giving. Even on this final issue that you have asked me about towels and tiles, I don't know. I read it in the media just like you. I expect you to go further and tell us that out of the 107 companies that DCI listed, it is company XY that bought towels and tiles, and this is where they were delivering it. Because you are the one who alleged. So how am I supposed to help you unravel this? I only read in the newspaper like the rest of Kenyans. Thank you. Therefore, it is important that if we are to win this war on corruption, it must be won by strong and concise evidence. Not from politicians who see this as an opportunity to mudsling their opponents.
Thank you very much. It's Bwana Khalwale's time, and also we are actually giving our parting shots because we're stuck for time.
The time,
well.
okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank my brother Otiende for attempting to teach me English. By sneaking in the word, it is called scapegoating. Let me tell you, for an accomplished scholar like you and I, the medium of learning from class 1 all the way up to where we reached is English. And if you think I don't know the difference between scapegoating and selective application of the law, then please don't teach me bad English. It should worry you, my brother, that Raya, like Bwana Khalwale, has more information that you are supposed to have as a member of parliament. This information, you get it from people who are in government offices because they have confidence in you that you will use it to exercise oversight on how the government implements budget. The fact that no Kenyan trusts you enough to give you this privileged information, it means you are failing on your duty for oversight. Stop spending all your time in parliament defending the one vote in Nyanza called the vote of Raila. It is time you guys grew out of that and became independent. You do the work you are sent in parliament, not to go to parliament to be defending one man, one man, one man. Do oversight for us so that Kenyans can say we have an MP who's working. And you are a very good example. I know you can do it. I know there are a lot of speed governors back home in Siaya.
Let's hear. Omatangi, briefly, as we're winding up, we need to also read the tweets.
Debarl, I think I would want to end my comments with probably posing the opposite question that we should have been addressing, in my view, this morning. And I would address it this way. We would be asking ourselves, is corruption real in this country? And the answer would be yes. I mean, has it messed us up as a country? And the answer is yes. Have there been leaders, political leaders, in our time and in our past who have taken this country down the drain economically through corruption? The answer is yes. You know, do we need to fight this vice tooth and nail to make sure that we win this war and secure the country that we have promised to Kenyans? The answer is yes. And in my view, what I would be saying, and although as I finalize, I would want my good friend Otiende Amolo to teach me how to say the word yes according to the Constitution.
Thank you.
But I was making my final point. You know, my final point is this. My final point is this, Debarl. that it is true we have to fight corruption. We must win this war. Kenyans are not expecting anything less or short of a victory in corruption. And so, whatever it takes, even if it means divorcing and removing the voices and the activities of politicians from every front in the fight against corruption and leaving it to those that have been given that mandate by the law, so that we can win this war. Then that should be the way we go.
Right, thank you.
Right, I would like to appeal.
30 seconds.
Yes, I would like
30
to appeal,
seconds.
I would like to appeal.
Everyone,
to
30 seconds.
Okay. I would like to appeal to the media houses.
If you don't.
The media houses, starting with the Nation, that from today for the whole week you play this song, Inchi ya kitu kidogo, Inchi ya watu wadogo. For the more raunchy radio stations, they can play Shaggy's It Wasn't Me. So that we can get to fight this corruption. But if Raila is cannibalizing Jubilee, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
30 seconds
Jubilee
over.
itself is also cannibalizing the NASA parties.
Your parting shots.
I want to tell Wamatangi, on this war, the Bible is your friend more than the Constitution. So look to the Bible, my friend. Dr. Boni Hadwale, since you have recently come into a team of researchers and access to information that most of us, even as MP, don't have, please assist the DCI by giving it. Thank you.
Okay. My final thoughts. My final thoughts, Debarl. Selective prosecutions targeting predetermined people and projects are the greatest threat to this war on corruption. So long as Otiende and Raila are telling us to look into the dams and not look into Kenya Airways, we will never win this war.
Thank you. We're winding up also with this particular editorial cartoon, and we can see here, Raila said that the opposition is not dead. It's only changed the strategy, and we can see who actually sleeping on this big bed. It's official. There is no official opposition. And Raila now is actually donning the Jubilee pajamas, and also we can see Kalonzo Musyoka there with Deputy Ruto, who is in a whippy-teary mode. He's being consoled there. It's only Musalia who's at the extreme end snoring. Is he alone on this as well? But notice as well, the watermelon has been passed to Raila Odinga. Is he a wishy-washy leader right now, or what is being conjured actually?
He was also drinking.
So we'll leave it for you to decide for this. I want to just thank our panelists this morning also on that particular note.
No,
I told you that was actually
those are our normal comments like everybody else. You gave everybody else that
should be on it as you're winding up.
Yes, I mean it was applicable to Bonnie and me.
Yes, suddenly
forgotten. My credits are rolling. Unless next time we'll give you the 30 seconds, so it will be 60 seconds.
Give him next week.
Next week.
No, but we qualified for the 30 seconds.